what's going on, everybody? It's Troy Force. I'm back with you guys with another special gaming piece here. We're going to talk about the Twin Galaxies controversy. It's been going on for quite some time. As you guys already know, I did a video regarding Todd Rogers and his score and the verdict that Twin Galaxies and Guinness made, and now we're up to another one. Apparently, Billy Mitchell is under fire with his Donkey Kong records. The one most specifically is the one regarding the actual International Video Game Hall of Fame 2010 score that he submitted. I don't want to bore you guys with the details too much regarding on what the controversy is with that, so I'm going to give you like the condensed version, and then we're going to get into something that we really need to look at regarding this. This entire piece is based on people from the Empire Arcadia community trying to figure out what's actually going on. And it's also for a lot of you guys out there in the YouTube world who don't really know what's happening, and you just see bits and pieces of what's going on, and you're trying to really understand what is the whole situation about. So let's get to it. Okay, the first thing we need to understand is that so Billy Mitchell performed a record on the arcade game Donkey Kong, and it was he did it at a time when he was going right into the International Video Game Hall of Fame. He did it live at an event in where it was not only recorded, but it was also adjudicated by a former Twin Galaxies referee. The issue here is that somebody on the Donkey Kong forums matched up a video with MAME. And I don't know where the concept came from regarding that he played it on MAME, but came from somewhere. And what they did was they noticed some things about Billy's game that was that had characteristics of MAME, very similar. So, based on that, they looked at how some of the stages loaded on MAME versus how some of the stages loaded on arcade. So when he found, some similarities, he then figured out that, hey, this can't be arcade, it has to be MAME. Where there are a couple of questions that that come up. One, what is the, who determines what loads like what? Where did this come from? Did Nintendo say, okay, MAME loads like this and our arcade boards load like that? That's the first question. Number two, when capturing or when going direct feed, how does the video react? How does it load up? How many frames before the screen is populated? There are so many questions that go along with this that must be answered before you can really come up with an answer. And that's what I actually done. But I'm going to break it down in layman's terms for people to get a more simplistic understanding of the entire situation. When looking at the Donkey Kong screens, let's take a look at this right now. So here are some of the main stages, right? I'll start with the the barrel stage. This is the barrel stage. Here you have MAME, then you have Billy Mitchell's, and then you have two other people. One is called Chris Gleed, and the gentleman who's disputing the record, Jeremy Young, and their versions of their games. And they're showing how their first stage, which is the barrel stage, loads up. And here it shows you how things are loaded from either left to right on the screen, up and down, or instant. And that's fine. The only problem here is that population of items on the screen and the frame in which they populate is not being investigated. It is literally just how things are being loaded from left to right. It is very important to understand and take away from this that MAME is an actual emulation of the arcade and not vice versa. So an arcade game acting like MAME or a MAME game acting like an arcade is supposed to happen because it's an emulation of the arcade. I say this because let me show you something here. Let's take a look at Billy Mitchell's game for the barrel stage, right? His game loads up in about 3 to 4 frames, right? And if you look at how his screen loads up, there is a similarity. 3 girders appear on the stage first before loading everything else. But if you notice on the 3rd frame, the entire screen is populated. Let's take a look at the oil barrel, the blue barrel. It loads on the 3rd frame. But if you look at MAME, MAME doesn't load it on the 3rd frame. The barrel actually loads a frame or two later depending on which MAME version you use. That's one example. So there are some similarities, but they are not exact. Let's take another stage on, for example. Let's look at the pi stage. The pi stage is a prime. This is one of the biggest examples that I actually use. Billy Mitchell's games have some similar loading of the pi stage in terms of the ladders going up and down. And if when you look at the ladders going up and down, you'll notice that the number of ladders that load up are not the same as the ones on MAME. They may come in similar, but they're not even the same numbers. In fact, if you look at Billy Mitchell's games, two of his games load the same, and they're two different world record setting sets versus his 1,060,000 point game, which loads completely different from his original first two games, or the MAMEs, or Chris Gleed's, or Jeremy Young's. His 1,060,000 game loads completely different from all of them. There are some similarities, but it is not exact. The barrels, the fire barrel in the middle of the stage. Let's take a look at that. The fire barrel loads in at a different frame from MAME or Chris Gleed's or Jeremy Young's game. It comes in at a completely different frame. And this is all due to how things are captured, displayed, and translated via your capture device so you can prove it. Technology used then was used from like camcorders, VCRs, inverters, and things like that. And it gets too technical to explain. That's not my forte. I'm not an expert on that, so I'll spare you guys. But if you look at Chris Gleed's, that's a direct feed, right? And if you look at Jeremy Young's, that's a 60 frame per second camera, providing he turned it on to 60 frames. Most cameras say that they run at 60 frames, but when you buy it, they start at 30 frames. You have to actually go into the settings and turn the camera on to 60 frames. But we're going to go with the fact that he put it on 60 frames. And even his arcade game is different from Chris Gleed's arcade game, which is different from Billy Mitchell's arcade game, which is different from the MAME games. And the entire point that I'm trying to show here is that although MAME and the arcades are similar, they're not exact. So the question here, on what basis is this being discussed, whether or not Billy Mitchell's game was MAME? Because of the similarities? Is that conclusive enough to determine whether or not Billy Mitchell's game was on MAME, a similarity? These are questions that need to be answered. And to be very honest with you, they're really subjective questions, because unless we get a video expert or an expert from Nintendo who actually build the arcade boards and understands how it runs, we will never actually know. But I'm giving you guys this example for the YouTube world and the people in the Empire Arcadia community, for you guys to have a discussion. Is this conclusive enough of a point to make to say whether or not Billy Mitchell's game is MAME or arcade? In my point of view, when you're capturing a game, whether it may be a camcorder to a VCR, which was then recorded from a direct feed, depending on what that was even recorded on, whether it may be component, whether it may be direct feed, whether it may be whatever that they use, frames are lost. I've actually tried a couple of this in my Premiere program, and you can stretch frames and find invisible frames that the eye can't even catch, that the games don't even normally catch, but you can catch them in there. So to me, because of this inconsistency, there's just nothing to stand on, because they have similarities, which is supposed to make sense. One's an emulator. It's supposed to emulate the arcade, so there's supposed to be certain things similar. In fact, let me show you a comparison of Billy Mitchell's 1,050,000 point game. There's actual footage on YouTube regarding one of Billy's very score in question. This video was uploaded by Settle It on the Screen and can still be found online on YouTube. In the description, it states, "These are the final minutes of Billy Mitchell's former record. This is the direct recording that was done on the game Billy played live in Florida after the filming of the King of Kong ended to regain the record. In attendance was a live referee, 300 plus witnesses, and a notary public who had the machine's motherboard verified by Nintendo's engineers. This engineer is none other than Wayne Shirks. Wayne was a senior engineer at Nintendo who verified the authenticity of the board that Billy played on at the event for his 1,050,000 point game. Billy till this day still has the tracking order box tag with Wayne's name on it from Nintendo of America. What a lot of people are not aware of is that this is still the same board that Billy loaned out to Twin Galaxies for Steve Wiebe to use at E3 in 2009 when he attempted to beat Billy's score. This means that only Billy and Steve have ever played on an officially verified Nintendo Donkey Kong arcade board. This brings up a question. How can it be that this same game that's in question, where it loads up the Pi stage one way, but in the very same game later on loads up completely different? This inconsistency makes it very difficult to make a definitive statement on whether the game is MAME or arcade. This also poses the question, if the board that was verified by Nintendo and given to Billy to do live in front of 300 plus people with a TG ref, then how can it be that this game is questioned to even be MAME? This doesn't add up, and the inconsistency makes the claim weak and requires the attention of real experts in the field of this technical video mumbo jumbo that's going on. Fortunately, Twin Galaxies has experts who are looking into it, and even a former board tech from Sega from back in the late 90s has weighed in on the matter. Finally, let's take a look at a couple of games that Steve Wiebe has played. His games are not in question, but they're the point that I'm trying to use about Billy's games. If you look at two of his games here, this is the same game but a repeat of the barrel stage being loaded up from two different points in the game. As you can see, they are different and shows the inconsistent loading match of the stage. This could be due to a number of reasons that no professional expert in the field has come forward to explain. Another example of this is at a live event at the Donkey Kong World Championships hosted by Richie Knuckles called the Kong Off. Here's Steve Wiebe playing a game on a restored Donkey Kong arcade by Richie. Notice that the stage loads up similar, but not exact to MAME, with the 3 girders. In Steve's game, he has about 3 1/10 of a girder. Later in another point of the tournament, Steve's barrel stage loads up completely different. Ultimately, just because you find one load sequence for each of the 4 stages in a Donkey Kong game that is similar to MAME, you have to take into consideration this is 1 out of 117 stages. That doesn't mean it's MAME. The inconsistency of the stage being built, its population, and the frame timing in which the populated items come onto the stage makes it difficult to make a claim that it's being MAME. More investigation is needed by actual professionals and experts on arcade boards and the actual creation of MAME to come up with a conclusive and definitive answer. Anyway, I hope this opens up a discussion for you guys to take a look at. I try to simplify this as best as possible. I'm no expert on this. It's just something I observed and thought I should put that out there for everyone. If you guys go on to twingalaxies.com and you sign up, you guys can check out more details about it and the long list of arguments that these guys are having and get in on the action. But leave your comments below. Let me know what you guys think about the entire situation, and I'll see you guys in my next special gaming feature. Peace.